also have a loaner program with Clean Canteen so that if people don't bring reusable water bottles, we're not going to shame them and say, hey, stop buying that single-use plastic water bottle. But we are going to say, hey, you can use this water bottle while you're here and maybe consider buying a reusable water bottle when you get home. So a lot of the stuff that we're doing is definitely like focused on minimizing our impact here, but more importantly for us is sending our guests back home.
Take back, yeah.
Hi everyone, welcome to Now Boarding, a new travel podcast by me, Payal Nayar. This show aims at creating awareness about ecotourism, sustainable tourism, responsible travel, and a lot more. We will cover stories and journeys of people who are ecotourism specialists and those who are leaders in their field. We will also be talking to people who have had unique travel experiences, remarkable conceptual places to stay, unexplored cultures, and ancient histories of various towns and cities around the world. Join me in this journey of knowing more about travel. Get inspired to see the world and discover your inner self.
Hi, everyone. Today I am in conversation with Travis Bays. Travis is the co-founder of Bodhi Surf Yoga, which is a retreat that's based out of Costa Rica. It's a sustainable and eco-friendly business with a mission to educate, inspire, and empower their stakeholders to live more sustainably through surfing, yoga, nature immersion, and community engagement. Thank you so much for joining me today, Travis.
Thank you for having me. That's a big mission statement, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure you're very passionately working towards it. So I just wanted to start off by asking you a little bit about you. I understand that you're not really from Costa Rica, but you've made it your home now. So just a little background on you and what made you actually come to Costa Rica.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm actually what people call a tingo, a tico gringo. So Costa Ricans are commonly known as ticos, and foreigners are commonly known as gringos. And when you become a little bit of both of those, they call them a tingo, a tico gringo. So I wasn't born and raised here, but I have spent 17 years of my life here. And I came here at the age of 25. I'm originally from San Diego, California. And I came here as a Peace Corps volunteer. The Peace Corps is a United States organization that sends volunteers to countries that have solicited our support. And so Costa Rica has solicited Peace Corps to be of service to the country since the early 60s. And I came in 2005 to work in small business development. So my job while living down here in this community from 2005 to 2007 was to help people start small businesses. And that's what I did until I moved to San Jose and met Pilar, my wife, and fell in love with her.
Okay. And then you ended up starting a business of your own.
Exactly. So that was in 2007, I moved to San Jose, the capital of Costa Rica. I fall in love with Pilar, and my contract with Peace Corps is ending. I have no real future job arrangements in the United States. I had no commitments in Costa Rica aside from this lovely woman that I was falling in love with. And it just so happened that I got offered a job from a nonprofit to help start community banking systems, microfinance banking systems down in this part of the country. And so I asked Pilar at that time, hey, do you want to come move down here with me? And she said yes.
How did the retreat actually come about, and what are the kind of programs that you offer at the retreat? So that's what I'm going to start off with.
Okay. So there are a few different things that happened for Bodhi to be born, so to speak. While doing my consulting work, a colleague of mine who was older than me had asked me one day, returning from the consulting of doing the microfinance community banking systems, He said, Travis, what do you want to do in your future? And I said, I don't know. I want to be a consultant like you. He said, well, that's really hit or miss. Sometimes you get contracts and other times you don't. He said, but what do you really enjoy? And I said, I enjoy surfing, non-formal education, and environmental conservation. And he said, why don't you start a surf school that incorporates those three elements? And I was like, oh, that's an idea. The other story or other part was that another colleague of mine, an old friend, and I had been talking about doing something together. And so what ended up happening is Pilar and I were married at the time, and my friend, who was a business partner, and his wife, we talked, and we two married each other, so to speak, in the creation of the business. And the name Bodhi is what really gives meaning to the business, because Bodhi is a Sanskrit word coming out of India that, when translated into English, can mean enlightenment, awakening, consciousness. And the idea is that we're using our four tools: surfing, yoga, nature immersion, and community engagement, to facilitate an experience that gets people to start thinking about their impact on the environment and to start thinking about the relationship that they have with themselves. So there's a lot more backstory to the birth of the company, but that's the short story. It's been a fun ride, and what we're offering specifically are 1 week and 2 week programs that incorporate those four elements: surfing, yoga, nature immersion, and community engagement. Now, we added a fifth element, which goes under the category of surfing, but it's called body surfing. It's surfing using your body and not a board. So we also have, and we are, at least we believe we are, one of the first, if not the first in the world, to actually offer a week-long experience teaching people the art of body surfing, which really is the most ancient way that humans interacted with the ocean in terms of surfing. Before the creation of the surfboard or the canoe, humans were just really basically trying to mimic the ocean animals like dolphins and fish that they would see swimming and surfing the waves.
So what are some of the environmental sustainable measures that you are taking in your retreat? We all talk about the 7 principles of sustainable living, the 10 R's of sustainable living. So how much of that have you actually incorporated in your retreat? The practices that, you ensure help in creating this very sustainable environment for Bodhi.
Yeah, so we aren't a lodge that's off the grid. We're not a lodge that has farm to table. So there's a lot of things that we aren't doing, to be completely honest. And I think, to be frank, our guests actually appreciate that, because the things that we are doing seem actually more accessible for them when they go home to be able to implement. Let's take the example of you in Barcelona right now. Barcelona is a huge city.
Yeah.
If you go to an off-the-grid lodge to try and learn about sustainability, you're going to learn about a really lovely way of life. But what about that retreat are you actually going to be able to take back home with you and implement in the busy city life of Barcelona? So where I'm going with this is that a lot of the stuff that we are doing are simple things. In addition to measuring our carbon footprint and literally weighing our trash, our recyclables, our composting, those are the nitty-gritty detailed stuff, our water consumption, our electric use. We also are doing subtle things like providing our guests with opportunities to choose a more eco-friendly sunscreen when they get here. We have a loaner program with Badger Balm and All Good sunscreen. So if guests come with chemical sunscreen, they can use the sunscreen that we have. We're not preaching to them or making them feel shame for using the chemical. We're just like, here's an alternative that you can try that's healthier for your skin and healthier for our coral reefs. We also have a loaner program with Clean Canteen, so that if people don't bring reusable water bottles, we're not going to shame them and say, hey, stop buying that single-use plastic water bottle. But we are going to say, hey, you can use this water bottle while you're here, and maybe consider buying a reusable water bottle when you get home. So a lot of the stuff that we're doing is definitely like focused on minimizing our impact here, but more importantly for us is sending our guests back home.
Take back, yeah. And
So
so it's a learning for them, and they take it back, and your hope is that they implement some of what they have learned, or not learned, but what they have experienced at the lodge.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
And so we do it through active living. That's a comment that we frequently get from guests, is like, we really appreciate you guys because you're just doing it. You're not perfect. Nobody is. And you're authentic about that. And we get it. And thank you for that, And so it's really nice to see that, we have some subtle messaging in the lodge too. Facts about, if you reduce your water consumption, this will happen. We have, the first R on the signs in our lodge isn't recycle, it's refuse, right? And a lot of people don't teach that. So like, do we really need this? Refuse it. If you don't need it, refuse to use it, refuse to buy it, and then reduce the things that you do need. Maybe you don't need so much of it, right?
Which parts of the world do you normally get your guests from?
Our main market is the United States, followed by Canada, then Europe, and specifically in Europe, it's Germany, Switzerland, France.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's another thing too that I struggle with, to be quite honest, and to be vulnerable here in this podcast, is surfing and yoga are so good, and we are offering it to the world, but we're offering it to those that are economically privileged, right? So oftentimes I have this inner fight, and I'm like, man, if these things are so good, how can we provide these things, week-long experiences, or just surf lessons, yoga, to people that don't have the money to afford it? Because there are healing, they heal people, surfing and yoga. And so part of our way of giving back is we have a surf and service Saturday program, whereby we go and give free surf lessons to community members that show up to provide community service that day. So we do beach cleanups or reforestation, and then provide free surf lessons. And also my wife, pre-pandemic, was doing yoga for the community. So anyone in the community that wanted to learn more about yoga, not just doing the postures and stretching and sweating, but actually the philosophy, because here in Costa Rica, a lot of people think that yoga is actually a sinful thing. It's looked upon negatively in the rural communities. In the cities, not so much, but in the rural communities, it almost has this negative connotation that it's like anti-Cristo, it's breaking down those barriers and trying to teach that it's not a religion, first and foremost, because that's what it oftentimes is mistaken for. So, but going back to the fact that yoga and surfing is so good for people, and it's a struggle that I have, because it's like, okay, is there a way that we can bring these things to more people, whether they're from our community or others that aren't as economically privileged as our current guests? Maybe start a fund, that the guests contribute to, so then we can gift to other people.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Wow. So what's next for Bodhi? I mean, obviously you've got this very, very passionate mission, which, I hear from our conversation that you're really, really working towards it and making a difference. But is there anything else that you have planned over the next few years?
We get that question a lot from guests and other people. How do you plan to grow Bodhi? What are your plans? And we constantly tell people, like, infrastructurally wise, we don't want to grow any bigger than we are. We believe that small is beautiful.
Yeah.
And so where we can grow, right, is through a few ways. One is that we do offer surf lessons to guests that are staying in the area, whether they're renting a home or staying at a hotel. So that business could continue to grow. And in doing so, we can create more employment opportunities for young Costa Rican surfers, female or male, that want to actually learn how to teach and have a decent paying job and do what they love, and move forward, and then potentially become a guide for our week-long programs or open up their own surf school. So that's one area where we could grow. And then the other is that during the pandemic, we realized that we had something to offer people from afar, which was primarily our yoga philosophy courses, yoga classes. And then we had also wonderful interviews from past guests, just interesting talks that people could listen to. We built out a Learn to Surf series. And so we have an online subscription program. So that's another area where the company can definitely grow. And so we're working on both of those aspects of the business. And then also really trying to figure out, like we talked about earlier, how do we continue measuring the impact that we're having in our guests? So really figuring out something that's light and nimble, because we don't want to ask our guests to fill out, 30-minute surveys, hour-long phone calls. It's something that could really then show us indeed that we are achieving the mission. And hopefully we can then share what we're doing with other surf and yoga camps, because I do believe that more so with surf schools and surf camps, they're missing it. They're missing this opportunity that they have with people to teach them about environmental conservation and how to, there she is, how to minimize the impact. Right?
Nice to
this
see
is
you.
Pilar.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I mean, I know it's towards the end of the conversation, but at least, I've been able to put a face to the name, which is great. I did watch your documentary, and and so I did sort of get an understanding of what you're all about. And I heard you as well, Travis. But it's interesting to be able to have this conversation unfortunately it has to be done remote, but at least it's there, and now I'm going to be able to share it to the wider world, which is fantastic. So yoga, when did you get into yoga?
Well, I got into yoga in my early 20s. That was like 2 decades ago. And it was like, at that time yoga was really a weird thing in Costa Rica. But it's still like there were a few people that knew about it, and I always felt I was gonna be I was gonna like it. I like everything like Eastern philosophies, and so I knew I was gonna like it. So I practiced for like 2 years here, maybe 3, and then I decided I like it a lot. So I took I wouldn't call it a sabbatical because I was working abroad, but so I could be able to study with teachers in the States and Europe. So that's how I got there.
You didn't travel to India?
Eventually, yes. That was almost 10 years ago. I went to India.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. Okay.
I almost lost her to India. She loves it so much.
It was a very like it's another dimension. But yes, I did India. Yeah.
Excellent. So I think surf and yoga clearly it has this synergy, which Travis has told me all about the lodge, and I've asked him a lot of questions. We've been chatting for over 40 minutes now, and so I've got a great understanding, and I'm really happy that I've been able to have this conversation with both of you now. So good luck And I'm sure the next time I talk to you, or I even come there, I think there will be, a lot more, some of the dimensions and that Travis, you were saying that you're trying to look into to see how you can grow what you're doing, not physically in terms of the lodge, but in terms of engagement and things like that, which I think you're already doing a lot. So, good luck, and I'm really, really happy to have had this conversation with you. And if there is anything that you'd like to share with the listeners and the viewers in terms of any kind of suggestions, anything that you feel from your end will, by talking about it, will kind of make a difference, please do go ahead, both of you.
You want to go ahead?
No, go for it.
Well, it's hard for me as I just jump into the conversation and I don't know what has been said or it hasn't been. So in terms of sustainability, I worked last year with hard on emphasizing, like, doing a lot of projects and initiatives in Bodhi and in the community, to like help this. And so all I'm saying is, like, perhaps all over the world there's people like interested and like, yeah, I should do something, I should start something. So my advice is just do it. Just start like that. Now, there's never like the perfect time. It's like having kids, there's never that, oh, okay, it's the time has come or anything like, and start from like, if it might be overwhelming to like, get informed about everything that we can do. But maybe even committing to one action can have such a positive impact. Committing to one action, but committing to a community effort, that is very important. Something we felt I would say I have felt like sometimes we're working as a community is that it is hard for people to commit. And, we all have things to do. We all have to, and like, it is not like, you don't have time, you have to make the time somehow. You have to make the time, you have to put the energy, it's on you. And sometimes I feel like when it comes to sustainability efforts, it looks like something additional aside that we could do. Maybe we should be looking at it more like a responsibility, that this is our house.
Yeah.
And it's the house of many other living things. And it's a responsibility, it's a respect, it's a thing, it's a value that we have to start adding in the values we hold strong in our communities and societies. It has to be included now. So
yeah, you're doing amazing work, and I'm sure there is a message in this for a lot of people who are listening and watching. So thank you again to both of you. And take care, and and I'm sure we'll meet again soon.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of Now Boarding, a travel podcast. Check out other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. And of course, don't forget to share your thoughts with us. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes only on Now Boarding, a travel podcast.